Hello and welcome back to Traffic Talks. This is officially part 3 out of 4 of the mental health series, and we are officially halfway done. I'm excited to keep going with this. It has been a heck of a ride, but here we are. This episode is all about how to check in with yourself and also how to keep it up going for the future. This is not just a New Year's resolution thing where you just, I check in at the beginning of the year and then move on with life. No, this is something that needs to be done on a consistent basis, or at least when it gets bad enough that you need to be like, whoa, I need to pull myself together. That is what this is. In the past 2 episodes, we looked at the effects of COVID on mental health and how to deal with working from home. But we're going to actually approach one thing that we haven't done, and that is how to go about who we are as individuals and how to check in with ourselves as a being. With wellness, there are 7 dimensions or aspects to it, and those 7 aspects are physical, emotional, intellectual, social, spiritual, environmental, and occupational. I'm going to go through them in that order. But before that, the definition of wellness that I found best suited this podcast was that wellness is an active process of becoming aware of and making choices toward a healthy and fulfilling life. That one I liked the most. And another one I found was as follows. Wellness is the pursuit of continued growth and balance in the 7 dimensions of wellness. Wellness is essentially being a healthy person and living a fulfilling life and trying to find balance in all these areas. And I think that is a beautiful pursuit to have in life, because a lot of people chase the wrong things. I mean, how many people can you actually look at and say, wow, you are not having the right idea of what to do because they're chasing after people or money or quick fixes and just not trying to live the good life. With my health scare back a few months ago and being hospitalized, I had a rude wake-up call as to what's really important in life. And that shook me up. I thought I was pursuing what I needed to do, but life has a way of showing you. And I've learned the hard way. One thing I know a lot of people think of when it comes to like wellness and health is basically having all sorts of PTSD flashbacks of like crash diets and sweat-inducing workouts and possibly ankle warmers. But a lot of them opt for having this mental image of this woohoo version of yogis and meditation and green smoothies and things. And that's also not a true image of what it is. But a lot of people who actually go for it realize that wellness and health are more than just about eating right and exercising and taking care of your mental health as you would your physical health. Like I said, there are various aspects to wellness, and they don't actually have a direct effect on your physical strength or physical appearance. We live in a very picturesque world, and a lot of people have a pics or it didn't happen mentality, and that could cause all sorts of, self-image issues to crop up. That is honestly a topic for a later podcast, which I will get to. But wellness refers to mental, physical, and spiritual well-being and the other various facets of life and your quality of your life, not just looking a certain way for Instagram. And that's one thing I always try not to focus on or even point out in my podcast, because it's not about what you look like. Slap a bow on a pig, it's still a pig, You need to be beautiful on the inside and it'll show on the outside. You don't need to look a certain way or fit into a certain size outfit. Like, that's not what life is about. As I said, there are 7 aspects and they all kind of interlace and overlap and interweave with one another. So a lot of them actually end up being more prominent than others. However, if one of them is neglected, the overall thing just falls apart. So it is important to maybe focus on one thing at a time and build them up as you go along, but never completely neglect one entire aspect or focus too much on another. Like the description and the explanation said, it's all about balance. So finding that fine line of balance and walking that tightrope is going to help you get to where you need to go. Like with the theme of lists in the past 2 episodes, we're going to keep going. There are 7 aspects. We'll start from top to bottom. So the first one is the physical aspect. This actually refers to your physical body, and like I said, not the appearance around it, but more like your behaviors around your body. Things like exercise, eating well. Do you drink? Do you occasionally do drugs? Do you smoke? All those physical aspects of your body and your health. And also the physical checks that you need to do. Are you going to a doctor regularly? If you're feeling ill, do you take time off to rest and recover? Are you making sure you're not putting yourself in harm's way on purpose? Are you making sure you aren't intentionally getting hurt? I mean, taking proactive steps to a healthy lifestyle is an investment in your future. I would know how quickly things can go sideways. Like I said, I've ended up in hospital. Things can get real ugly real fast, and taking care of your health is very important. I've had to make a lot of changes to my life, and it has had profound effects in other aspects, which is why it's generally important to take care of your physical health. And that is done by eating the right foods, taking vitamins, exercising, all those things that we know we should do but we don't, and having alcohol cut off and cigarettes banned and all sorts of things did impact a lot of people. But even if it was a small change to you as a person, it could make a huge difference in the long run. So I did speak about habits and routines, and I know you're sick of it, and I'm sorry, but here we go again. Changing your habits and working on your routines. I did an entire podcast on it. Go listen to that if you need the help. But making small steps can do a lot for you. Even if you maybe prep crunchies or snacks or something like that on a weekend, store it in a container and have it ready and available for you during the week so that you don't go grab a chocolate or something unhealthy, can be that small change you need. And it could actually snowball into something much bigger and better. So you start this week by prepping snacks, and then next week you prep better snacks, and then maybe you start meal prepping certain foods. For example, you start prepping make-ahead breakfasts that you can just reheat. So you can make these little breakfast cups where you bake like an egg and bacon and all sorts of things, and freeze it and reheat it or whatever. And that could just lead to all sorts of healthy food choices for the future. 6 months down the line, you could actually be food prepping like a queen, And these changes don't happen overnight, but it could do a whole lot for your health in the long run. So small steps could mean big changes, especially, like I said in the previous episode, if you have young children, they could learn these things from you, and by making changes in your life, they'll follow. Children don't choose to eat all the crappy snacks that they eat. You provide it to them. So if you provide them healthy alternatives and they see you eating them, they'll do that. I mean, my sister loves carrots and celery sticks and all sorts of things because that's what we snack on at home. We go to fruit and veg, we buy all sorts of fruits and things like that. Do you know how easy it is to grow spinach? We haven't had to buy spinach for literal months, because every time we need spinach, we literally just go cut a few leaves off from the garden and cook with it. It's the best thing ever. I will honestly remember to take pictures of it for you for my Instagram, just to show you that is what we do. So it's small changes that can mean long-term benefits, not only for you, but for your next generation as well. Same thing with exercise. Don't start out by running a 5K. Start by just walking around the block. Take a longer walk every time. Start by stretching slowly. That's how you build up your flexibility. Start off slow and you'll build up to it. You don't have to eat the elephant in one bite. Small bites will get you there. Even if it comes to things like alcohol and going out with your friends, now that we have had certain rules lifted, maybe having a glass of water in between every second or third beer would just mean cutting down on so many calories that come from that, and maybe not being as hungover the next day. Like I said in the previous episode, using up all your self-control. But if you have a routine of having a glass of water in between every beer, you won't have to even think about it. That's just how it works. One thing I will say is don't use food as a form of reward. It's just going to make your relationship with food unhealthy. Try and figure out other ways to reward yourself. For example, if you do a good workout, reward yourself with maybe like an aromatherapy shower. Or if you exercise, get yourself a nice pair of running shorts. Or if you run every single day for a month, buy yourself a nice pair of running shoes. Like, figure out something that's not food related, because that can just spiral into a negative that you do not need. Being healthy is a lifelong journey, not a quick fix with a crash course type of a destination. That's not gonna work. The next up is the emotional aspects, and as a human being, your emotional state fluctuates completely throughout the day. You may start off happy in the morning, you might get a phone call first thing in the day and it just ruins everything. Someone may come along and just be like, you know what, this happened, and you'll be happy again. So it's a constant emotional roller coaster. Having these emotions is honestly not a bad thing, and expressing your emotions is also a good thing, but it's how you express your emotions that is actually very important. It should be done in a respectful manner and never in an outburst or explosive kind of a way, because it can actually do much more harm than good. I mean, shouting at a child because you've had a bad phone call or client is not going to be good for you or the child. A better option would be to be like, I'm not good, I just need to step out for a moment, I'll be back in a second, and then you can talk to me. Is that okay? And then move on and come back to it. But just take a breath, calm yourself, and try and not have that kind of an outburst, because it can definitely lead to way more damage than good. The emotional wellness is essentially self-esteem, optimism, self-acceptance, and the actual ability to share these feelings in a good way that actually makes up what emotional wellness is. It's being able to feel various emotions and convey them in a way that's not forceful, but also not too subtle, if that makes any sense. Like I said, a lot of these things are a fine line that you kind of just walk along like a tightrope. One way to actually wrap up emotional wellness is the ability to look inwards and explore, and taking your time to do so. Journaling is a way to do it. Finding all sorts of introspective lists where you can ask yourself things and figure out who you are inside is definitely something that can help you and your emotional well-being. A lot of times when you think things through or do introspection, you can actually figure out things you didn't know were triggering you. And that is actually something very powerful, because if you can find out what is triggering you, you can maybe even get rid of that trigger or learn to accept it and not have it impact you as harshly as it used to. Especially having someone to talk through these issues with, like a therapist or a trusted friend or someone, if you don't like doing therapy, or even just a journal where you get through it, that is going to be brilliant for you, because having a sounding board is going to help you come to terms with these things much easier. The intellectual aspect of your well-being is definitely about creativity and stimulating mental activities. So a lot of us need to be continuously inspired and engaged mentally. So a lot of times we engage our bodies physically, we need to engage our brain mentally. And this could be as simple as a podcast that we listen to, it could be a puzzle that we do, it could be a crossword, it could be something more intense. But having things or hobbies that you do that stimulate you mentally is very important. So some people like to learn languages, others learn skills. Those are all things that work well. And even just reading is also a brilliant way to stimulate yourself mentally. The social aspect, as we've all learned through this COVID, is about how we interconnect with others. So this could be figuring out how to communicate with others socially, in a physical environment, or over the phone, especially when it comes to partners. And by that I mean someone who's a romantic partner, someone who is a life partner, someone who is even just a co-worker and working with you through something. It can be very easy to overstep social boundaries. So taking into account the different ways in which we need to be communicating. For example, when it comes to work, you can't be bothering someone out of work hours for personal problems. That's not fair. And having certain circles that you rely on is also a very good idea. Family and friends for closer things, and work things for work people. That's generally how a lot of people keep the things separate. But a lot of times, if you do know people long enough, you can start to blur lines. Take that into account when it comes to social things. And especially keeping contact with others. I know I struggle with this. Keeping contact is very important for your social well-being. Some people thrive, especially extroverts, thrive on constant communication. Others, not so much. So for me, I tend to forget to communicate with others because that's just how I am as a person. I tend to get caught up in my head a lot. It's my Pisces nature. So every once in a while, I'll be like, I just hit up someone and I'm like, I miss you. Like, I haven't spoken to you in forever. I miss you so much right now. And that's a crappy thing for me to do. But a lot of my friends understand it. So I'm extremely grateful for that. Another part of social well-being is actually your community and doing things for your community. I do know recently my mom and this guy actually struggled to pull some money together to even just buy a bread. You know, he had change in his hand and he was counting it out and he didn't even have enough money to buy a bread and a drink. And you could see he was struggling and he asked people and no one even gave him the time of day. You know, I was just like, Mommy, this guy needs help. Like, I'm going to help him. And she's just like, okay, do it. And I said, like, just wait by the till. I'll be there in a sec. We got to the front of the line. I was like, put your stuff through, and I literally like paid for he'd literally bought a bread and a drink and he didn't even have enough money for that. I paid for it. He went on his way and we literally saw him eating dry bread and drinking his drink. My mom was like, oh my word. Life is hard enough with all these things that we go through, and being able to help one person in a small way that we did was something that we could say, we helped someone today, we did something good. You know, hopefully someone else will do the same. So many people actually just walked on, and this is the thing. Like, I'm saying it in this podcast. I'm anonymous on this podcast. It's not going to be blown up all over social media. That's one thing about having the social aspect to look at, is actually going to bring forth doing good for others in your community. And it could be as small as helping one person. It could be as big as helping many people in a community. But helping others is part of social aspect and giving back and to others in whatever way you do. Some people donate to charity, other people's volunteer their time. Whatever it is, it's up to you, but do something good for others. One thing I will say is I don't like when people put it on social media. A lot of the time in South Africa, we have 67 minutes for Madiba, which is a thing done every year for his birthday, where you do something good for 67 minutes. But everyone is on social media about it, which I hate. You do something because you want to help someone, not because you want to get Instagram likes and things like that. And that's just my opinion. But helping others is always a good thing, even if it does end up being someone's Instagram feed for 3 days. Like, that's your thing. But just do it with good intentions and you'll be fine. This actually leads me to the next one, which is the spiritual aspect. It's your beliefs, your principles, your values, your hope, or even just your faith. It's how you look for meaning in life, whether it's a higher purpose or a higher self, or none at all. It's up to you. But it's how you believe and how you find your inner harmony between what you believe inside yourself and what actually happens outside, and not having that clash, but find a way to rather bring a balance between the two. And that can be very difficult. One way could actually be to explore yourself in a spiritual sense. And this does not even have to be like a religious belief. Like I said, you could do introspection and meditate and figure out who you are inside. If that's someone who believes in religion, cool. If it's not, cool. You know, you do you. And a lot of things that can help you with this is looking up different principles or values and things that people have and trying to figure out, is this a principle I believe in? Is this something I want to have? Is this something I want to live by? And that is actually something that can actually change your mindset about who you are for the better. That is an important thing going forward, because if you don't know who you are and you don't know where you've been, you won't figure out where you're going. Wow, that was a lot taken. Try and get through that and just look through how you believe what you believe. You could even not rely on religion and maybe focus more on a scientific point of view. That's up to you. But one thing I would caution is to not force feed other people what you believe. My sister went through something where this girl basically tried to force feed religion to her. And my sister was like, I'm not practicing any religion at the moment. So thank you, but no thank you. And this girl badgered her the entire lunch break and she was so upset by the time she came home. Don't force feed people your religious beliefs, whether they are something that you believe completely or even not at all. That's your thing. The next aspect is your environmental one. So at the beginning, we talked about your physical body, and this environmental aspect is related to your physical environment. This one is looking at the state of the earth and the effects of our daily lives and habits on the planet as a whole, as well as our physical environment. I mean, we had fires in Australia at the beginning of 2020, the COVID spread, the planes that were grounded caused so much damage reversal in terms of the globe that certain animals actually started returning to environments they hadn't been to in hundreds of years. The carbon footprint dropped dramatically because of different lockdowns in different countries, because people weren't allowed to use cars for traveling to work back and forth, which is a lot of emissions. And a lot of governments have actually, before this lockdown and things, started putting up certain laws regarding plastic and water wasting and renewable resource development and things. So this is about as much as our physical environment and doing things in our homes to make things more green, but also on a global scale. What are we doing as individuals to reduce our carbon footprint, our waste, our damage to the environment? All sorts of things. I mean, even something as simple as picking up your litter could be good for the environment. And that is something that we all need to look at. I mean, we went through a drought a few years ago, and there are still water-saving hacks that I use to this day. My mother's been saving water since before there even was a drought. So there's a lot of things that we can do, that we should do, and that we need to do, not just for ourselves, but for future generations. There's a store that actually has different bins for recycling, so you could actually bring your recyclables to this shopping center, throw it in there, and then go about your day. Even reusable bags, they make bags that literally fit about in between your finger when folded up and actually have a hook. So if you're a woman, you can hook it onto your bag. If you're a man, you can actually hook it onto your jeans and you have a bag for your groceries. You don't need to keep buying those reusable plastic ones, which is terrible for the environment, by the way, even if they are made out of recyclable materials, because they take very long to break down. Having these options are great, and doing your bit for the environment is a brilliant, brilliant thing. Last on this list is the occupational aspect, or another way of describing it is vocational wellness. So this is all about using your gifts, your talents, and your skills in order to find your purpose in life, in order to make yourself happy, in order to enrich your life. A lot of people find their talents and things when they're young and do it. A lot of times you'll see this with famous stars or athletes or things like that who started out really, really young and then pursued that all their life, and it's their talent, it's something that they love to do, and they end up doing it until they're very old. And even when they're done with their career in the spotlight, they still continue to maybe coach or mentor in that same field, and that's just their way of doing their things. And a lot of people don't find their talent until much later in life. For example, Susan Boyle was 40 years old or something like that, maybe older, when she sung on America's Got Talent with her singing voice and made it big. It's about you figuring out what will bring you happiness and what your talents and gifts and skills are, and using that in your everyday life. Working a job you hate, especially if you aren't using your talents and your skills, is going to make that job even harder for you. I understand we need to all make money, but a lot of times we have to go through that in order to find out what we are willing to do for money, what we aren't, and what actually truly is going to make us happy in terms of our job. Once again, this is circling back to that introspection that we all love to hate to do, because if you figure out who you are, what your strengths are, and what you are good at, it'll help you narrow down your options of what jobs would be good for you. So if you're someone who's talkative, look into jobs in possibly radio or interviewing or something like that. Or even if you like being talkative but you also are very camera shy, maybe you can do script work but still have that kind of social aspect to it. Find out what works for you and explore different options. What you think might be the job for you might not, and having experienced it and can say for sure, like, I thought I'd like this, I tried it, I didn't, moving on to the next thing, is better than always wondering what if. Create a vision for yourself, go down different paths and see what works, what doesn't, because you might just end up in an even better place because of trying things and they didn't work out. So you'll never know. You also may want to do something called Who I Am Now versus Where I Want to Be, where you write down all the aspects that you have now good and bad. So maybe you are unfit, unhealthy, in a bad job, and that's all you're who you are now. And then next to that, you can make what you want to be. So you want to be in a different job, even if it's an explorative one. You may want to be in a better physical condition and work out the plan on how to get there. You know, all those kinds of things. You can even do it for each aspect that I mentioned previously, like where you are, what you want to do, and take little steps one day at a time. Don't try and overhaul yourself in one day. It's not going to work. Small steps to doing this thing and you'll get there slowly but surely, because that's life. You don't live life all at once. You take it one day at a time. That is it for this one. Maybe you might want to even set a monthly check-in where you do this, because that's definitely going to help you. Or even the 12-week year is a good book that you can look into, where you split up goals and things into 12 weeks at a time and have like a weekly check-in or a monthly check-in. That's always a good idea. That's it for this one. Next one will be the final part. So I will see you guys then. Love you. Bye.